your kid's going to be a genius, or they're going to become a track star, and they're never going to cost you a dime in education expenses because they're going to win the Nobel Peace Prize at 14 years old, discover the secret to world hunger at 16, and win 4 Olympic gold medals for Team USA before they even learn how to parallel park. Fine. So many kids right now are being saddled with tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loan debt. You can protect your kids' wealth even from beyond the grave. Some people get a cigar for their high school graduation. I'm planning on giving my kid a credit score in the high 700s, maybe 800s. Is it bad that I'm kind of jealous of that? Support for Networth and Chill comes from Adobe. Planning your finances means taking a realistic picture of your life as it is now and where you want to be. But you also got to plan for the unexpected, because life happens and you need to be able to edit, adapt, and collaborate with others to reach your goals. Adobe gets that, which is why they made a tool that's just as flexible. PDF Spaces and Acrobat Studio. Your PDF files are no longer static. Instead, they're living documents that flex with you and your project's needs. Learn more at adobe.com/do-that-with-Acrobat. What's up, rich friends, and welcome back to another episode of Networth and Chill. I'm your host, Vivian 2, aka your rich BFF, and your favorite Wall Street girly. Listen, I've tried grinding at a corporate job, I've tried networking, but what I really recommend is being born into wealth. It's so easy. Before you've even figured out what the alphabet is, you're already rich. I'm kidding. I'm definitely not a trust fund baby, but I spent most of my 20s working hard and figuring out personal finances with the hope that my future children will have more support than I did. And I guess you probably want the same thing for your kids. We all know that building wealth is so much easier when you have guidance on how to save, how to invest, and how to make it last for generations. But how can you help your kids be rich? What resources are out there for creating wealth that lasts? And also, WTF does a trust fund do? Let's take a look today, right here on Networth and Chill. Okay, let's dive straight in. One of the most common questions I get from you guys is the question of how to make sure that your kids are born richer than you were. Honestly, good on you. I love that. It's no secret that the number one indicator for whether or not you'll be rich is, wait for it, if your parents were. It's why I wrote my second book, Well Endowed, in order to teach you how rich people set their kids up for financial success. And today, I'm going to walk you through the 4 main hacks that you can do today in order to ensure that your little ones are reaping the benefits of your hard-earned money. And if you're interested in even more money knowledge about how to level up yourself and your kids, pre-order my new book, Well Endowed. It is the blueprint on how to build generational wealth, set your kids up for financial success. You're absolutely going to love it. So please, you can go to richbffbook.com to snag a copy. Yes, there are signed versions. Or you can just get it wherever you typically buy your books online. The book comes out February 3rd, so you'll get it very shortly, and I promise you, you will love it. Okay, let's dive in to these hot tips. First and foremost, before we talk about anything else, my first recommendation is adding your child as an authorized user on your credit card. It's one of the easiest and quickest ways to help your child build up a strong financial portfolio. Adding your kid as an authorized user basically just means that they're going to be issued a credit card with their own name on it, but you are going to be responsible for the bill. So say you have a Chase Sapphire Preferred credit card, you can issue an authorized user a version, so it'll be the exact same card except with your kid's name on it. And listen, I know that sounds like a horror movie waiting to happen because nobody wants a teenager running around the mall with their own credit card, but that's how rich people help their kids get perfect credit scores long before they're even allowed to apply for their own credit card. The trick is this. You add your child as an authorized user, and instead of giving them the card, you can just put it away. You keep paying your monthly credit card bill on time, and your good credit score now becomes their good credit score. Frankly, you can even cut the card just to make sure they're not blowing money on Labubu's or whatever. You can even add a newborn baby as an authorized user through some credit card companies. Don't ask me why that's a thing that exists in our society. I don't know what finance executive had the genius vision of a baby with a travel rewards card, but I would love to meet them. But this is a genius idea because it allows your child to start building credit history from day one. I am someone who had to build my own credit history, and it was a slog in my early 20s. Now I have a little over a decade of credit history, but it would have been really nice had I had the same length of credit history as I had been alive. The only thing I do have to note, though, about authorized usership is that you actually have to be good about paying your credit card bill on time. If you aren't paying your bill on time or you're maxing your cards out, you're actually going to ding your kid's credit score. So this is all to say, only do this if you know for a fact that you are going to be able to pay your bill in full on time. But if you do have good credit habits, you only stand to gain from this. Some of you might know that I actually went through the process of freezing my eggs and turning them into embryos with my husband. So these are the kinds of things that I'm thinking about as I start to envision this chapter of my life. But I'm definitely going to set my kid up as an authorized user the moment they're born. That way, by the time they graduate from high school, they'll already have 18 years of near perfect credit history and a high credit score, which is going to be super helpful if they're going to rent their first apartment or apply for a credit card of their own. Some people get a cigar for their high school graduation. I'm planning on giving my kid a credit score in the high 700s, maybe 800s. Is it bad that I'm kind of jealous of that? When I was 18, I was paying my bills on time, but I didn't have an excellent credit score until later in my 20s just because my credit history was short. But for my kid, they'll never have to worry about building up their score because I'll have done it for them. They'll start adulthood with excellent credit and a lot of reminders about how mommy grinded over so many years to make that happen, so don't blow it. And I think what's really awesome is that you can also use this as a teachable moment. Obviously, if you're setting your baby up, that's not the time. But later on in their life, have the conversation about being a responsible credit user so that they develop those good habits as well. Okay, up next, 529 accounts. So adding your kid as an authorized user on your credit card is a quick fix. So now let's talk about some bigger fish. 529 accounts. You ever heard of them? These are investment accounts used to save and invest for educational costs. And you can set one up for your kid before they're even born or adopted. This is how rich people help their kids pay for school and even save for retirement. The easiest way that I can explain a 529 account is that it's an investment account that's only for educational expenses. Say you want your child to go to private school K through 12, or you want to help them pay for their college tuition, or even buy them all of those fancy chemistry textbooks to do their homework. Say they need help paying for beauty school, culinary school, or trade school. With a 529, the parent or guardian or family member that opens it up, in many states, I would say over 30 states, you actually get a potential state tax benefit, not a federal one, but a state tax benefit. You as the person who's putting money in, that money is able to grow tax-free and then is able to be withdrawn and utilized for any sort of educational expenses tax-free. That's right. You will not have to pay taxes on the investment gains. You don't have to pay taxes when you take that money out for things like room and board, for your meal plan, for anything that has to do with your school, with education, if you are pulling it out of a 529. And when we talk about rich people finding loopholes to save on their taxes, it typically feels really vague and out of reach, but this is the kind of stuff that nobody talks about, but you can do too. Regular people use this. I would know because my parents had one for me. And like I mentioned, there are also a ton of other tax advantages for having a 529 account. At least 35 states offer some kind of state income tax deductions or credits for contributing every year, and you don't have to pay federal or state income taxes on the earnings. And I can't stress this enough, you don't even have to have a kid yet to open a 529. You can actually open the account, make yourself the beneficiary, and start contributing. And once your kid is adopted or born, you can then roll the account over to them. I know. Your kid's going to be a genius, or they're going to become a track star, and they're never going to cost you a dime in education expenses because they're going to win the Nobel Peace Prize at 14 years old, discover the secret to world hunger at 16, and win 4 Olympic gold medals for Team USA before they even learn how to parallel park. Fine. Your kid is so amazing. But there's still a benefit to opening a 529 account. You can actually roll up to $35,000 from a 529 account into a Roth IRA for your child to help them start saving for retirement. This actually came out of the fact that people were putting money into 529s and not actually able to get through all of it for the cost of education, because if they started early enough, their money was growing that by the time their kid had gone off to college, they still had money left over. And this was a nice way by the government to help solve and alleviate some of those concerns. Why is this important? Because so many kids right now are being saddled with tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loan debt. And if you are able to leverage a 529 account, you literally just let your kids start at the start line. So many people, so many young people graduate from college, 6 figures in the hole, and they spend the next 20 to 30 years of their life just literally trying to dig out. That puts them at a severe disadvantage. I'm not saying you need to give your kid the sun, the moon, and the stars and hand life to them on a silver platter, but making it possible for them to graduate debt-free, letting them start at zero is such a gift. It was a gift that my parents gave me. And so when I talk about student loan debt, I always acknowledge the privilege of having gone to school and not having to pay back any sort of student loan. It really set me up for success because it also allowed me to immediately start setting money aside for saving, for investing, when most of my peers had to probably prioritize their debt first. So seriously, consider it if you're thinking about potentially having your kids go to college or even not. These days, you're going to need some sort of higher education degree, whether that's trade school, culinary school, what have you. This is a great way to help pay for it. Up next, let's talk about custodial Roth IRAs. A 529 isn't the only kind of account that rich people use to help their kids save money. If you're really looking to build a giant portfolio for your kids to fall back on, I recommend looking into a custodial Roth IRA. This is for kids who are maybe a little bit older, maybe they just got their first babysitting gig, or they started mowing lawns in the neighborhood, or, maybe they are younger. Maybe they were such a cute baby that they did a modeling gig or two. Really rich people usually have their own companies and just hire their kids as contractors, the real Nepo baby stuff. But as soon as they start to earn that first dollar, you can put it into a custodial Roth IRA for them and basically help them start saving for retirement. There are so many benefits to this. Of course, we know the best asset you can have for investing is time, so giving them an 18-year head start means 18 years of compounding interest, which means 18 years of tax-free earnings for the future, and even better, the contributions themselves, not the earnings, but the contributions, can be withdrawn at any time. That means if they're buying their first car or home later on, they can potentially pull from this nest egg that you saved up for them. But if they decide to let that money sit in that account until they're ready to retire, they can access that money 100% tax-free. No income taxes or capital gains taxes, and because they're your financially savvy, hardworking kid, of course they're going to hold on to that because saving on taxes by doing literally nothing is what we call a win-win scenario. Now, let's talk about something that might get people a little nervous. You might be thinking, Vivian, are any of these accounts trust funds? I get this question a lot. People don't really understand what a trust fund is. We hear a lot about trust fund babies, but it's never exactly clear what that means. But a trust fund is a little something different from a 529 account or a custodial Roth IRA. Basically, a trust is a legal entity set up by a person called a grantor who can leave assets behind, like real estate, investments, life insurance policies, and other stuff to someone else who is called a beneficiary. Unfortunately, I would have loved to have been a beneficiary, but I'm going to have to be a grantor, and most of us listening are probably going to have to be grantors, not beneficiaries. Somebody in the family tree's got to make the money, and unfortunately, it's probably going to be you. The reason a trust fund is different than some of these other accounts is because it involves a little bit more legal paperwork rather than just running over to, your bank of choice and opening the account. Rich people like trusts because you can assign a trustee to enact your wishes exactly how you want when divvying up your wealth to the beneficiary. A trustee can be a law firm, an accountant, or even just like a close family member. In my case specifically, my trustee is actually my business manager. So the man that does the financials for Your Rich BFF is my personal trustee for my family trust. The gag is that with a trust, you can tell everybody in your life exactly who gets what, when they can get it, how they can receive it, and why you're dividing it up that way, which, as you guessed it, is exactly how we get so many fun TV shows about rich people's family drama when a trust fund is mentioned. If you leave your multi-million-dollar net worth to your kid who loves to buy luxury cars all the time, like kids do, that money could easily be thrown down the drain. But with a trust, you can decide how much each of your kids gets, based on how responsible they are, at what age they get that, so hopefully they've grown out of their Lamborghini phase, for what purpose, aka not all for supercars, all while keeping assets away from creditors and reducing taxes. The benefit of this is that you can protect your kids' wealth even from beyond the grave. You are able to help them avoid probate, and if you're petty and want to teach them a lesson, even reveal who was your favorite all along by ranking their inheritance. Listen, they say money can't buy love, but sometimes money can be a real indicator of it. Nothing says, I love you, but your sister was more responsible than you, than putting a cold, hard dollar sign on it. There's a ton of other legal nuance that applies to trusts, and there's a lot of different types of trusts. But even if your net worth isn't in the 7-figure range, you can still talk to an estate planning attorney about if a trust is a good option for your family. And if you want to learn more specifically about how to set a trust up, what it might cost, and what we put in ours, you can check it out in my book, Well Endowed. You can pre-order a copy at richbffbook.com. And then the fourth thing that I think we should be doing for our children is sharing knowledge. There's this old saying I've heard which goes something like this. The first generation starts the wealth, the second expands the wealth, and the third spends it all away. Generational wealth oftentimes does not last past that third generation. We all know the stereotype of the rich private school kid with the fake job who just spends their days shopping on Fifth Avenue and dipping into the seemingly endless pool of money that their parents left for them. And for many of us who are planning to have families and have worked hard to start and build our own portfolios, I'm sure this trope of the spoiled rich kid may float around in the back of our minds. It's why you have parents who try to teach their kids the value of a dollar early on with allowances and stuff. But I think the best thing that we can do to avoid this adage becoming true is just to teach our kids about personal finance. Teach them all the things you wish you'd learned earlier on in life. That way, when you hand over the funds you've worked hard to create for them all their lives, you can trust that they'll know how to manage and invest it well. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Knowledge is power, especially in the world of finance, and the more you can equip your kids with the skill to look after your wealth and their own, the better off your family will be because of it. You can always do the standard, get $1 for every A+ you get lesson. I never had that rule actually. I would have cleaned my parents out. But this is all to say, I truly believe that generational wealth is not just money, it's also that education, because rich people do pass down these secrets, and the rest of us, we have to learn the hard way. So if you are interested in passing down that wealth, pass down that knowledge. Support for Networth and Chill comes from Adobe. When you write down your financial goals, you do it knowing that life happens. Your finances evolve, your timeline shifts, and the details change as needed. So if you need to be flexible and adaptable, then the documents you use to keep track of it all should be too. That's where PDF Spaces from Adobe Acrobat Studio comes in. With Acrobat Studio, you can do so much more with a PDF file than you ever thought possible. PDF Spaces takes those documents and turns them into a living project that you can edit, engage with, and collaborate with others on. You can even put all of your files into one workspace and have a whole conversation with your AI assistant about it, and ask questions to get deep insights about your project. You can also invite people to your PDF space and let them add files, comments, notes, and more. You can brainstorm through sketches or even synthesize all the info in podcast form. Acrobat Studio lets you generate an audio overview of your project in just one click. Learn more at adobe.com/do-that with Acrobat. Hi friends, quick pause in our show to take a question from my besties in Phone a Friend, presented by Adobe Acrobat. Steven asks, what is productivity debt? Productivity debt is a concept that reflects the gap between the potential benefits of your time and resources and the actual output you're achieving. Think of it like this. When you delay tasks or let inefficiencies pile up, you're essentially accruing debt that can then hinder your productivity and ultimately your financial health. Here's how it can impact someone financially. You can lose opportunities. When you're not operating efficiently, you might miss out on revenue-generating opportunities. For instance, if you spend too much time on low-value tasks that you could be delegating, you could be neglecting higher-impact activities that could drive your income. Additionally, increased costs. Productivity debt can lead to higher operational costs over time. If you're not streamlining processes or managing your time well, you might find yourself spending more on resources or even paying overtime to catch up. Also, stress and burnout. The stress of managing productivity debt can lead to burnout, which could affect your ability to work effectively. This can result in decreased performance, potentially impacting your income and business growth. And last but not least, interest on that debt. Just like financial debt, productivity debt can accumulate over time. The longer you let inefficiencies linger, the harder it is to catch up. This can create a cycle where you're constantly playing catch up, which can be financially and emotionally draining. So to tackle productivity debt, consider strategies like prioritizing tasks, delegating responsibilities, and leveraging tools and resources like setting up automatic payments that enhance efficiency. It's all about making sure you're not just busy, but productive in a way that actually supports your financial goals. Now, back to our show. All right, now onto our Q&A section. Let's get into some of these questions. I have debt. Will it transfer to my kids after I'm gone? The rule's very clear. Children are not personally responsible for their parents' debts, including credit card balances, personal loans, or medical bills, but that won't stop debt collectors from calling up your kids and pressuring them to settle the debt. The only time they are responsible is if they co-signed anything with you, like a mortgage or a medical loan. There is, however, a catch to all this. When you die, someone is named the executor of your estate. That's a lawyer or often a family member who is now responsible for distributing your assets and paying debts from your funds. Executors have to make sure that all debts are paid before distributing any inheritance to your beneficiaries. Failing to follow this procedure could actually open you up to a lawsuit. So if you don't have the money in the bank to settle the debt, we're kind of looking at murkier waters because while your kid's not technically on the hook, those debts are going to get paid before your kid does. The easiest way to ensure that your baby doesn't have to deal with all of this is just by consolidating it and making a plan to pay your debt off during your lifetime. That means if you have something that's high interest rate like a credit card debt, you can consolidate it into a personal loan or a balance transfer card with a lower interest rate or no interest rate for a certain temporary period, and then paying the principal off versus just chasing down the high APRs. This is also, again, why trusts are so popular, because if you do have your own debts, if your money is not technically yours and it is part of a trust, that may be actually able to be shielded from some of those creditors. What are some other resources after having a baby? Ooh, okay. The child tax credit is worth up to $2,200 per qualifying child as long as you earn under $200,000 or $400,000 for joint filers. Plus, if you have a family, the child tax credit is also partially refundable. The child and dependent care credit also allows family to claim a refundable tax credit to help offset the cost of childcare. If I'm being honest, it is a drop in the bucket of what childcare really costs these days. And generally speaking, you're going to need to have a pretty low household income in comparison to, I would say, the standard American family to really qualify for the entirety of it. That said, certainly something to look into just because every dollar helps and there's no discount, no credit that is too small, but it won't necessarily cover the entirety of your childcare. This credit also doesn't just cover daycare. It also includes nanny services, after school care, and summer day camps. And last but not least, something to think about just in case anybody listening is open to adopting. You can also get a credit for adopting as of 2025 with the adoption credit and exclusion. Obviously, do not adopt children just for this tax credit, but certainly something to help defray some of those costs, as adoption is certainly not as accessible as it should be in this country. There are so many people who are looking to start families and really, really want to, but these costs are very high. So definitely look into that if you're open to adopting. What other tax advantage tips do you have for giving money to my kids? Well, first off, you can straight up give money to your kids, period. As of 2024, families can pass along $18,000 per person or $36,000 per couple, so mom and dad or mom and mom, dad and dad, whatever, in money or property without incurring federal gift taxes. And that's per kid. So say me and my husband, we've got 3 kids, we can give $36,000 per kid. So for example, a couple with 4 children could give the kids $144,000 tax-free in 2024 and still continue their gifts in future years. Okay, next question. I'm curious, what are the types of trusts? Okay, if you're really interested in trusts, I mentioned before that there are a ton of different types, and they can be very, very nuanced and a little bit complex. But the difference largely boils down to just about levels of control and tax benefits for you, the grantor. Essentially, the more permanent and less control you actually have over the trust as the person who put the money in or put the assets in, the more tax benefits there are for you, the more you will actually be benefiting from utilizing it. But again, that means you likely won't necessarily be able to get the money back out. Generally speaking, trusts fall under 2 overarching umbrellas, revocable and irrevocable. These are 2 very hard words to say. Revocable trusts are, as you can guess by the name, more flexible. This comes from the word revoke. They allow the grantor to alter terms or dissolve the trust at any time, right? But that also means that you're not necessarily going to be maximizing on any sort of benefits because at any point you could just Control, Alt, and undo it. Anything you put into a revocable trust can be transferred to a number of beneficiaries while you're alive or after you're gone, meaning you can still move stuff around. It's not totally locked up. The reason why people opt for these is because you won't necessarily have to go through the process of probate after your death, meaning your family won't have to go through the pain of validating your will. They can just get their inheritance right away. The terms of a revocable trust also aren't made public like those of a last will and testament, so an estate can be distributed with a high level of privacy. That's where we get these stories of rich people bequeathing weird stuff to their children in secret, like rare bonsai plants and briefcases of cash. Irrevocable trusts are the no-takesies, no-backsies of the trusts, which means you can't really alter or dissolve them after it's set up. But the benefit is that they offer protections against estate taxes or creditor claims, right? Because you cannot really undo it. Here, the grantor permanently has to give up control and ownership of the assets and money placed into the trust. So once it goes in, it does not come back out. Anything you put in, it's frozen. But a revocable trust can protect assets from those people who might come knocking on your door if, they're looking for your kid to pay that debt. There's nothing they can do about it. If you have unpaid debts, say it's a car payment or credit card debt, they can't seize your house or savings account if you fail to pay them back. That is in the irrevocable trust. Irrevocable trusts can also reduce the amount of estate taxes owned after a grantor dies, and in some cases wipe out the taxes entirely. The only way you can really undo the terms of an irrevocable trust is if all the beneficiaries have unanimous consent, aka your kids are going to have to fight this out. So these are the two main types, and within that, there are a ton of different kinds of trusts to manage your assets, which can be revocable or irrevocable. There are certain trusts used to help make rich people eligible for Medicaid. There are ones that help pass things to their children. There's different types. There even includes things like spendthrift trusts, which release the money incrementally, and a trustee is granted the power to decide when to transfer inheritances and how much. That's the kind of trust you typically see with suspicious parents who have reckless kids. There's land trusts, which just focus on divvying up your real estate. Medicaid trusts, like I mentioned, which allow individuals to set aside assets as gifts to their beneficiaries and allow you, the grantor, to qualify for long-term care under Medicaid. And if you're really, really mad at your kids, there's also the generation skipping trust, which only releases to the grantor's grandchildren or anyone who's at least 37 and a half years younger than the grantor. Plus, there's tax benefits for that one, just to really dig in the benefits of teaching your kids a lesson. People often choose to set up trusts for several reasons. Asset protection. Trusts can protect assets from creditors, lawsuits, or divorce settlements, especially if they're irrevocable. This means your hard-earned money can be shielded from unexpected financial pitfalls, avoiding probate, aka going to court. One of the biggest benefits of a trust is that assets usually bypass the probate process. You don't have to go through the legal conundrum that occurs after someone passes away to validate their will and oversee the distribution of their estate and essentially prove that you are the person you say you are and you are deserving of this. Bypassing probate just means quicker and more private distribution of assets to beneficiaries, which saves you time and money. And control over distribution. Trusts allow grantors to specify how and when their assets are distributed. So, for example, they can set conditions for when beneficiaries receive their inheritance, which can be helpful for minors. For example, maybe they get the money after college or they get the money after their first job or, this is just essentially saving them from themselves. This is for people who will not manage their money well. And there's also tax benefits. Certain trusts can help reduce estate taxes, provide other tax advantages, preserving more wealth for heirs. There's privacy, especially for people who don't want snoopers. Trusts remain private. You keep all of the financial details confidential. And also, there's, certain things like flexibility. Trusts can be tailored to meet individual needs, allowing for various terms and conditions regarding asset distribution, protection from legal claims. And frankly, trusts can facilitate the transfer of wealth across generations, ensuring that your family's financial future is secure. As for disadvantages, listen, setting up and maintaining a trust can be pricey. It involves legal fees and ongoing administrative costs. Fortunately, these days, you can typically just get a boilerplate online through a Zoom Legal or a Trust and Will. And then once you get it to the 95% point, you can then go and hire a human lawyer to actually just look over it, make sure everything's done correctly. Another disadvantage is complexity. Trusts can be complex to establish and manage. You need to have pretty careful planning and understanding of the legal requirements. So that's kind of where that price comes in again. And loss of control. In irrevocable trusts, the grantor, you, is going to give up control over the assets placed in the trust, which can be a really significant consideration because what if you do want to undo it? Well, in some cases, you won't be able to. At the end of the day, we all want our kids to be happy and healthy. We all want our kids to live comfortable lives where they can dream of being anything that they want to be. It's my belief that comfort comes from not worrying about paying your bills and having a financial cushion to fall back on, because when you're in survival mode, you can't think of broad horizons or wild ambitions when you have to worry about rent. But when you don't have to worry about money, that's when you'll have the time to dream of a greater life and have more goals. How can anyone not want that for their kids? The great thing about these tips is that you don't necessarily need to already be super rich in order to get things started for your little one. You can add them as an authorized user on your credit card today, or pop over to the bank and set up a 529 for them now. Maybe it won't be perfect, but doing something is certainly better than doing nothing. That's also true for investing, saving, and pretty much all things in life. Not only will your child be better off for it, you'll also probably thank yourself for doing something years from now. I'm going to catch you guys next week, besties, and let me know if you end up using any of these tips. If you want the more detailed, dedicated walkthrough on how to set these things up, like a trust, a will, power of attorney, healthcare directive, making sure that you understand how like these 529 accounts, custodial, Roth IRAs, UGMA accounts, UTMA accounts, there's so much jargon. But if you want to really understand the blueprint of how to set your kids up for success, leave generational wealth, you will find it inside of my book, Well Endowed. Make sure to pre-order a copy. The link is richbffbook.com. Please check it out, or you can pre-order it at your favorite book retailer online right now. I promise you're going to love the book, and it's going to teach you a lot, and this is going to be incredible for setting up your family tree with generational wealth. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye! Support for Networth and Chill comes from Adobe. For a long time, turning something into a PDF kind of felt like creating a digitized fossil, like you were encasing all your grammar errors in resin for your whole team to see in perpetuity. But what if your PDF was alive? You could engage with it, collaborate through it, and ask it questions with the help of an AI assistant. You could even let your PDF talk to you by turning it into a podcast. With PDF Spaces, your PDFs stay dynamic and alive, letting you do more than you ever thought was possible. Learn more at adobe.com/do-that-with-Acrobat. Thanks for tuning into this week's episode of Networth and Chill, part of the Vox Media Podcast Network. If you liked the episode, make sure to leave a rating and review and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Got a burning financial question that you want covered in a future episode? Write to us via podcast@yourrichbff.com. Follow Networth and Chill Pod on Instagram to stay up to date on all podcast-related news, and you can follow me at yourrichbff for even more financial know-how. See you next week. Bye!